Hey guys, for this video I thought I'd do my Xbox 360 collection. Out of all the consoles I have, it's the console I have the most games for. Actually I counted them just a while ago and I actually have exactly 150 games for it, which is quite a bit, so this is probably going to be a three-part video, I'd say. It might be two, I'm not sure. So I'm going to try to go through the games rather quickly, just some brief thoughts on them. As for the console itself, the 360 is probably, yeah, it's my favorite console of the three of the current generation consoles. It's not perfect, it's terribly unreliable, the red rings of death, I think the Xbox 360 is better now with the current revision of it, what do they got now, the Slim, I guess, with the Wi-Fi on it and whatnot, but I've been actually rather lucky with the Xbox 360. My first one, I had it for about a year, then it gave out, it got the red rings of death, and then my second 360 after that, which is, it was still the first model they had, has actually lasted me until now, and I've had no problems with it. But I basically love the system. I love the controller the most, probably. I think the Xbox 360 controller is perfect, in terms of its comfortability and just how good it is with all types of genres of games. The Xbox Live Arcade service is phenomenal and definitely worth the amount of money you pay per month to use it. There's tons of great games on there. But yeah, definitely a great console. But nothing compared to previous generations consoles. But with that, I'll get right into it. Got 50 Cent, Blood on the Sand. I don't like 50 Cent, I don't like rap music, but this is a really fun game. It's a standard arcade third-person shooter where you're trying to rack up points. Very fun co-op, not so much by yourself. Alan Wake, I was really excited for this one before release. I'd been waiting quite a long time for this, and it definitely did not disappoint. A really fun third-person shooter with really dynamic combat, and I loved the different options this game gave you in terms of taking out your enemies. The storyline was kind of disappointing to me, but this is still a very fun game and definitely worth. I think it's pretty cheap nowadays, so if it's definitely a worthy addition to an Xbox 360 collection. Alone in the Dark, one of probably maybe 5 games on the system I haven't completed, and that's because I really don't like this game. I think the controls in this game are flat out broken, I think. There's a driving section I got to it's still pretty early in the game, but the controls for that driving section were so awful, and it was such a terribly designed part, I just shelved the game after that. This game just really kind of pissed me off. Then we have the Assassin's Creed games. I've got Brotherhood here, Assassin's Creed 2, and 1. These games, the first one I really liked. A lot of people say it's repetitive. I didn't find that. I thought this game was incredibly unique at the time and lived up to my expectations. The second one, Assassin's Creed 2, definitely improved upon everything of the first game did. It's nowhere near as repetitive, and it's a lot more fun exploring the city, and I loved the villa building aspect to it. The storyline has lost me on this game. I kind of liked the storyline in the first game, and this game it got way too convoluted for my tastes, but this is still definitely the best in the series in my opinion. And then Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which is decent. There's some things I didn't like about it. The online competitive multiplayer I wasn't a fan of. And I think the missions in this game were way too trial and error based for my taste. Like there was these stealth missions that if you got caught, you'd have to replay like 20-minute sections, and that kind of drove me nuts a bit. But still a really fun game, and these 3 games are all pretty great games. I'm not going to be getting Revelations, I think it's called, because I've kind of lost interest in the Assassin's Creed series now. The storyline's just completely lost me. Batman Arkham Asylum, fantastic game. I'm not really big into superhero movies and video games. Batman's probably one of the only superheroes, that I actually like, so it was really great to have a game like this that, Batman games, of course, have historically been awful, but this game is flat out amazing. It's got a Metroidvania style where you explore, the prison, and you can go back to previous areas using items you get later, and just a really fun game from start to finish with a great combat system that really makes you feel like a badass. I sucked at this game, but it was still fun to play. Then we have Battlefield Bad Company. Terrible campaign, really slow, tedious, with really clunky aiming, I thought, but a fantastic multiplayer experience in this one. I don't really like competitive gaming that much, but the online multiplayer in this actually entertained me quite a bit. I put probably over 100 hours into it. Battlefield 2, a much more improved campaign, nowhere near as bad as the first game's campaign, but I still really didn't like it that much. It's really linear and just honestly kind of boring. And I didn't even really play the online multiplayer that much in this. I gave it a try and I just couldn't get into it compared to the Bad Company 1, which I found was odd. But if you like first-person shooters, there's a good chance you'll love this game. And one of my favorite games for the 360, Bayonetta, just a fantastic, fast-paced action game. Just a crazy game. Every boss battle in this game could be the final boss in any other game. It's got a really confusing storyline that's completely nonsensical, but that's fine when the game's so much fun. And, with the announcement of Bayonetta 2 for the Wii U, I gotta say, that's tempting me to get the Wii U. I wasn't too interested in the Wii U before, but Bayonetta 2 might have sold one for me. Beautiful Katamari. Funny thing is, this is actually one of the more expensive 360 games if you go on eBay. It's actually kind of pricey. It's a fun game, the Katamari series I've always liked. It hasn't really evolved as much as I would have liked. I mean, you could spend the kind of high prices for this game, but I just recommend playing Katamari Damacy for the PS2. It's essentially the same game and just as fun. Big Bumpin', this is one of those Burger King games that they sold. In fact, I think they still do sell them. I bought this and the other two Burger King games thinking maybe they'd come rare someday, or well, actually, to tell you the truth, I was kind of an achievement whore. I still like achievements, I still go for them a lot, but I used to be really huge into them, so I bought these games just for the achievements, which is a really dumb idea, because this game and the two other Burger Kings are not that good. This one's probably the best out of the three. If you can get friends together and play some of the mini games on this, it's actually quite fun, but other than that, not the greatest game ever. Bionic Commando, not really a fan of this game. I never like it when a game kind of forces you to play it a specific way and you're not allowed to explore your surroundings. This game penalizes you for exploring, and that just really kind of bugged me. But the combat in this game is not so great. The boss battles are really annoying. I definitely wouldn't recommend this game. Not that good. Then we got BioShock, obviously one of the best games on the system. Definitely, I think this is probably the best first-person shooter released to this generation. It kind of gave me that feeling Half-Life 2 did when I played it for the first time. Just a really unique setting, really fun gameplay. I love just searching the environment for, money and weapons and things like that. But just a super fun game, and definitely, if you don't have this or haven't played it, it's a must-own. Then we have BioShock 2. What can I say about this? I liked it. A lot of people I don't think really enjoyed this game. I still think, it had the same fun gameplay that the first game had, so, that was nice. The storyline this time around, though, was really, unnecessary and really wasn't that interesting. Then, of course, you had the online multiplayer, which was completely tacked on. Overall, a rather unnecessary game, but still fun. Borderlands, of course, the sequel just came out. Don't have that yet. I'm probably going to get it in the future. I'm not really interested in it right at the moment, but, really fun game, this one. Just, this first-person shooter RPG hybrid that was completely unique at the time. The environments are kind of annoying to get around in this game, and if you're playing by yourself, it's definitely not that fun at all. But if you have friends to play with, this is definitely a a pretty solid game. The Bourne Conspiracy, a really generic third-person action game. I hate the movies, so I don't even know why I really bought this, but definitely not that fun of a game. Brutal Legend, I was really excited for this one before release. I played the demo on Xbox Live, and I loved it, because I love these kind of hack and slash games. So I was a bit surprised when this game turned out to be mostly a real-time strategy game. I'm not too into real-time strategy games, so I was somewhat disappointed in this, but it's still a fun game with a phenomenal soundtrack. My favorite part of this game is just riding in your vehicle, roaming the environment, listening to metal. It's really just, I don't know, I love popping this game in from time to time just to do that. But if you do like real-time strategy games, though, this is actually a really fun game. Bulletstorm, really an amazing game. I heard this game didn't sell too well, which is actually kind of a shame because, I thought this was just an insanely fun game. It's so fun pulling off different combos, and the weapon designs are really nice in this game. It's got a comical storyline. It's filled with these, jokes that aren't really, they're not, they're definitely towards the toilet humor side, but still a really funny game and just a really fun game. Then we have Bully Scholarship Edition. This is a really fun game. It's basically Grand Theft Auto, but you're in a schoolyard and you play a kid going to a private school. Some of the activities in this game I thought were kind of dull, but the storyline is fantastic and it's got a really great main character. Call of Duty 3. This was before the Call of Duty series got insanely popular, and I'll be honest, this game is not that great. The main campaign is incredibly boring, really uninspired too. The multiplayer in this is not like the popular multiplayer of today. It's really a slow-paced multiplayer mode that focuses on a lot of people and especially vehicles, which I wasn't a fan of, but overall, definitely not that good of a game. Call of Duty 4, I actually really like this game. I'm not too big into Call of Duty nowadays. I've kind of stopped playing the series, and I'm not into the multiplayer at all, but the campaign in this game is fantastic. And it really holds up well, too. There's one mission in this game, I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't played this game, although most people have, so I guess I'll tell you anyways. It was the All Gillied Up mission. It was a very slow-paced, kind of stealth-based mission where you were crawling through grassy fields, avoiding tanks, taking out guys with sniper rifles. It was so different from the rest of the game and the rest of the Call of Duty series, because it wasn't action-packed, it wasn't explosions in your face every second. It was this really slow-paced, cinematic, tense mission. It really stood out to me as one of the best moments in any video game I've played this generation. But, this game's, fantastic, still holds up well, and a great first-person shooter. And Call of Duty World at War, this is where the series lost me, and I haven't bought a game since. They went back to World War II for this one, which is, really, really boring. The weapons, because they were all old, were boring to use. The campaign was uninspired. The multiplayer is the same as number 4, but I still didn't like it anyways. And the zombies mode, which was the big thing that this game introduced, I couldn't get into. I thought it was, even with other people, just really not that fun. Of course, in my opinion, of course. The other Call of Duty games, I don't plan on getting them. I know they're back to the Modern Warfare style, but I don't know, that just, the explosions, action-packed, fast-paced game all the way through, that kind of, I don't know, it kind of bores me for some reason. So I think I'm done with the Call of Duty series for now. Castlevania Lords of Shadow. This game's fucking terrible. I actually hate this game. I don't actively try to hate games. I try to get enjoyment from all the games I play, but this game just made me mad. I finished it. I had to finish it. I knew I had to finish it, even though every single minute of this game I just hated. It's got this really tedious, slow-paced, boring combat system where almost all of your combos are completely useless. These really horribly designed puzzles that just waste your time. You know, that you've got Prince of Persia style platforming that sucks because of the awful camera angles, an uninteresting storyline. You know, obviously Castlevania fans hate this one because it doesn't feel like Castlevania, so there's that too. Everything about this game just turned me off, basically. I've heard of a lot of people still enjoying this one, so I'd say give it a shot if you haven't played it. But overall, I really didn't care for this game at all. Catherine, this was done by the Persona team, which, you know, I love the Persona games. They're fantastic. This game, not so much, and it's more a matter of opinion. I'm not too big into puzzle games, and I just flat out sucked at the puzzles in this game, and I didn't find them any fun at all. Which is a shame, because the storyline in this game is incredibly interesting. You know, it brings up topics and themes that you just don't see in other video games. I really wish I could have got into this one more. You know, I saw one of my friends go through the entire game, and the storyline in this, I'll just tell you, it's flat out amazing. But the gameplay, I just couldn't get into. The Club, this is similar to 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. It's a nice arcadey third-person shooter. Nothing more, nothing less. Condemned Criminal Origins. I think this was a launch title for the 360. If not, it came out a bit later. And this is still one of the best games on the system. Just a really creepy, tense game. You know, it's absolutely brutal in terms of the combat. You know, it's completely designed around melee weapons. You can get some firearms, but they're very rare. And you're just basically beating the shit out of these drugged up, messed up people that are, you know, these criminals. While at the same time going through this investigation because you play a detective. Just a really, you know, really great, fun game with a very nice storyline. You know, it reminds me of like a serial killer movie, but, you know, in a game. Then we have Condemned 2. Not quite as good as the first game. This game had like a really nonsensical storyline that got really stupid towards the end. But, you know, the gameplay is still fun in this. It had a bigger emphasis on firearms, which I was not into too much, but there's a part in this game, like in the middle section of the game, where you're trying to run away from a bear, of all things, that, you know, it sounds silly, but it's seriously probably one of the most intense moments of any video game that I've gone through. This game's worth playing just for that part alone. But overall, definitely still a solid game. Crackdown, you know, the game everyone bought for the Halo 3 beta. I actually did not buy it for this. I actually played the demo of this on Xbox Live before I even knew of the Halo beta, and the demo just blew me away, because this was the first time I'd ever seen like an open world Grand Theft Auto type game where you could get, you know, where you were kind of like a superhero and you'd get these crazy powerful abilities. You know, you could send cars flying like hundreds of feet in the air. You could jump crazy high and collect all these orbs. And I thought that, you know, that demo just was so fun to play that I knew I had to have this the day it came out. And this game did not disappoint. A really addictive and fun open world game. And if you haven't played it, you gotta play this. Crackdown 2, a lot of people were disappointed with this game. I wasn't. I mean, yeah, it's more of the same, and there weren't any significant upgrades. And I definitely didn't like what they did with the story mode. The story mode in this game, it's just basically like a defend the flag type scenario for the entire game, which was definitely disappointing. But, you know, the Crackdown gameplay is still here. The world's still fun to explore, and it's addictive as all hell. Dante's Inferno, you know, kind of a derivative hack-and-slash action game, but definitely an intriguing storyline and some of the most probably adult settings I've ever seen in a game. Like, there's some really, really disturbing images in this game that, you know, I always wanted to see what was going to come up next in this game, but, you know, other than that, it is, you know, just a standard hack-and-slash game. If you like those types of games, I definitely suggest playing this. The Darkness. This game, I remember this game just coming out of nowhere. I had never read anything about this game. You know, I didn't know what it was about. I just saw it on store shelves back when it came out for $60, and I took a chance on it and boy, am I glad I did. This game is fantastic. If you haven't played it, it's basically, it's based on a graphic novel, I think, called The Darkness, obviously, but I haven't read that, and I'm not into the graphic novels too much. But this game is basically just a really fun first-person shooter where you have darkness powers, and it's a really violent, gory game. But the best part about it is the storyline. The storyline in this game, it's very adult, very, very serious and dark, and just awesome, especially because of the main character. The main character, Jackie Estacado, is fantastic. The game's got this interesting subway hub world, and you can go to these different areas of the city, and take out bad guys and go through the main storyline. Really, if you haven't played this, you must. It's a really phenomenal game if you appreciate storylines. The Darkness 2, it was done by a different developer than The Darkness 1, and it shows. This is more your generic first-person shooter. It's got a really nice cel-shaded visual style to it, but, it lacks the really dark and gripping storyline of the first game, and it's a lot more linear. It's still fun as far as first-person shooters go, but definitely nothing compared to the first one. Dark Sector, made by the same developers of The Darkness 2. This game's okay. It's nothing special. It's your standard third-person shooter with, a glaive that you can throw at enemies and chop their heads off and things like that, but it's pretty uninspired, I'd say, for the most part. Darksiders, this is a great game. This is basically God of War and Zelda combined. It's got a nice open world for you to explore that's really fun to explore. Some nice dungeon designs with the exception of one that really bogged down the game for me towards the end. But other than that, if you like Zelda or God of War style games, this is a must-play. Then Darksiders 2, this is the most recent Xbox 360 game I bought. I, got it on release day, played through it, and beat it quite quickly, even though this is actually a 20-hour game. Lots of replay value to this one. More of the same in terms of the Darksiders series. It's, again, Zelda and God of War combined. Though this game has more of an emphasis on Prince of Persia-style platforming and running along walls and climbing, which I wasn't that into. And I don't know, this game had kind of a... I wasn't as big of a fan of the flow of this game as compared to the first one. But I think this game made substantial improvements. I mean, there's loot this time around in this game, so it's got loot fest kind of thing, which I liked quite a bit. But basically, a really fun game like Darksiders. Dark Souls, I went over this in my top 3 favorite games of this generation video, so I'm not going to go into details for this game, but I'll just say it's my favorite game this generation, a true masterpiece. Deadly Premonition. Already, this is a cult classic. Actually, it's a survival horror game, but it's actually set in an open world, which is actually pretty unique. It's got this crazy Japanese, completely out there storyline with some of the most interesting characters I've ever seen in a video game. Not only that, this game's quite lengthy too, so it'll last you quite a while. If you're a fan of crazy Japanese games, I highly suggest you play this. The gameplay itself is rather mediocre. It's got this Resident Evil 4 style over-the-shoulder viewpoint, but it's pretty sloppy in terms of the gunplay, and a lot of the enemies are rather annoying to kill. But if you can look past the gameplay, the story in this game will have you hooked. Dead Island, a really janky game. It's a really ugly looking game. It's definitely got its quirks, but it's a whole lot of fun if you get if you get some people to play it with you online. Just searching for loot, killing zombies, leveling up. Quite a fun game, actually. But anyways, that will do it for this part of the collection. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2.